What's up, y'all? Quan, host of Mediocre Dads that go by Q, or being mediocre is a choice. You have to refuse to be mediocre every single day. It's Christmas. I'm in my backyard. This is kind of new to me. I'll be honest with y'all. I feel the need to be quiet. At the same time, I'm like, I'm in my own backyard. Should be able to be as loud as I would like. But it's a day, and I say it like that because you know as parents, we envision Christmas being this day of just everybody being on the same page, being on one accord, right? Where we all wake up, we each understand our roles. It's like being on a basketball team or being on a football team, right? As the linebacker, usually my responsibility would mean I control the defense and put out the plays for the defense, whether we're in zone, man, or I'm I'm a facilitator, right? Or point guard in basketball, right? I'm making sure that everybody is where they're I'm controlling the ball, I'm controlling the pace, calling out the plays. Again, I'm in charge of maintaining, doing what we're supposed to be doing, making sure my team is doing what they're supposed to be doing. Well, at times when we're parents, and maybe I'm just speaking for myself, I think we can forget that our kids are not playmakers, and our kids are kids, and they're going to they have a say in how our days go and what happens. And what I mean by that is waking up this morning. It was like 5, and I'm not even gonna lie to you guys, I was extremely tired, and so I fell back asleep. And my oldest had come in and was just like, it's Christmas, but the rest of us were essentially sleeping. And so she hopped into bed and with us, and next thing you know, all 4 of us are asleep. But then my wife wakes up at 6, and she's kind of just hanging out while all 3 of us are sleeping in the bed. And it was one of those moments where when I woke up, I was like, dang, it's Christmas. We're, you know, the kids come wake you up. You're supposed to be up and you're supposed to do it. But I was like, nah, today's Christmas. We should be taking a break. And so we did. We did that, and then we woke up and we did the Christmas thing, and it's been a phenomenal day thus far. But forgive me. Merry Christmas to you all, of course. And I know it's 3 minutes in, and I forgot to say Merry Christmas, but Merry Christmas to you all and to your family. And I hope you guys are having a very blessed day. But again, we cannot forget why we celebrate Christmas. I guess which this is a good transfer point from my story. But we were celebrating Christmas. We're opening presents. I'm taking photos. And my daughter, my oldest, is handing out presents, and my youngest has no interest in her stocking stuffers whatsoever. And so we're just doing the thing, rolling with the punches, and in the midst of that, I remember sitting there thinking to myself, like, okay, when is the appropriate time as a biblical father to say, hey, this is all fun, but now we need to get into the Word. Now we need to remember why we're celebrating today, why today is so important. And I found myself at a crossroads of, like, if I interrupt the fun now, that makes me a bad dad. But if I facilitate, if I interrupt and say, hey, no, today is important today, I need you guys to understand why we're celebrating today. The biblical side, dad wins. God wins, of course, but God wins either way. And I found myself in this battle, and then I realized something. I realized that I was more concerned with reading the Word and expressing this and making sure my kids understood the importance of today, out of a ceremonial ties than it was out of the feeling of like, no, I want my kids to understand why we celebrate today. And so, I stopped. I stopped myself from trying to interrupting the fun. We did we opened all the presents. They had a blast. Even set some of the presents up, and then we did. And then from there, we went right into singing. Happy birthday to Jesus, and we came out to the backyard where I am now, and I got to read the word, and I got to read the message, a devotional from my father-in-law. And he does them every year, and it's very important to him that usually as we all come together, he would read it for us. And so, when I took away the need or the feeling that I needed to do these things out of ceremonial reasons, or out of ceremony rather than out of compassion and love for my God and wanting to express and show my kids that Jesus is so important in my life, and I want him to be important in their lives, it felt better. And what I mean by that is the the connection to the Holy Spirit and to God felt more real. The experience felt more real rather than fake and enforced. And so I think a lot of us in our faith and our following Christ, in our walking our path, we try to force so many things, when if we would just stop, let go, and let God, as the church says, it would be amazing the impact and the the flow that God would present in our lives. I I am in the middle of a battle right now at work, if you will, and one of the issues that I'm facing is leadership. And you know, as a leader, for me especially, I feel the need to always be in control. And I don't and I feel the need to is if I can control every single thing, every single aspect, I can minimize the fallout, I can minimize the pushback, I can minimize the mistakes. And as a leader who does that in the workplace, but also who does that in the home, you remove God from that. And for me at work, I removed God from the equation, but I try to keep God in the equation at home. But that only had a negative impact because the Quan that I was trying to be at work and separate Quan and God from work in home. Well, the work Quan tried to was piercing into the home Quan. So the spiritual Quan that I was trying to be. I don't know what that is. Spiritual Quan that I was trying to be was then overshadowed by the simple fact of, all right, here's something over in the, anyway. So I don't do it at night because I record at night because, man, a lot of creepy. We have a totally off topic, real quick tangent. I do these. We have uh it's not a raccoon, but it's forgot what it's called. Anyway, we have this thing, and it lives within our cul-de-sac, and all of our neighbors have seen it, and it's so annoying because you see him, and he's like tiptoeing on the edges of the fence, and I don't know, sure you can't see my fence right now, and so like every movement I think is him. But anyway, back on track here. Um, the leadership that I was trying to be, the Quan that I was trying to be at work, was bleeding into the Quan that I was trying to be at home, which was trying to be the biblical father, the biblical leader that I wanted to be. And in the end, none of it was biblical. None of it was spiritual. None of it was the dad, the father, the leader that God had originally planned for me or for any of us fathers to be. And I found myself in this place of just um, sadness and truthfully despair and failure, um, because I just couldn't wrap my head around why everything seemed to be going the opposite of how I originally intended or had hoped for. And I finally came to the realization that it was me trying to control every aspect. Now, I'll say this to you guys: if you're a control freak like me, it just doesn't happen overnight. Meaning the you are saying, "Hey, I'm no longer going to try to be in control." It doesn't just happen overnight. It takes some time, and for me, it has taken some time. There are still aspects of my life where I feel like I have to have 100% control, or else. And so, I'm still learning. I still ask for grace and forgiveness every single day. But one of the books I asked for Christmas that I got for Christmas was Point Man. And shout out to Jay for the Young Dad podcast for recommending this book to me. It's by Steve Farah, and it's called Point Man: How a Man Can Lead His Family. And I opened this book, like I was reading this book like 10, 15 minutes before we got on, or before I even recorded this, and immediately I was immersed in it. I loved within the first chapter was magnificent, was magnificent to me. It was well written. It was easily to understand, and there were a few things that I wanted to point out to you guys, especially to my fathers, that I think is important because it's talking about leadership here, and one of them being, he points out here, he says, war has been declared on the biblical family. And he goes into this story, this experience about being on a patrol in Afghanistan, and he's 18 years old, and he's the point man, meaning he's the man leading the patrol. And within a split second, things go from chaos, from peace and tranquility, to chaos and disorder and disarray. And two people are dead, and the younger soldiers are now looking to him to lead because he's the most experienced. You got a man bleeding out, all these things, right? He's hell of a first chapter, right, to get into. But he's going into this, but then he says, hey, even if you have never had that experience yourself, he goes, now let me paint this picture for you that you can, that because he was talking about the imagination of people who haven't been there, who can't really imagine that. But he's like, now let's put it into perspective. Now imagine you're the point man on a patrol, but behind you is your wife, your daughter, your son, and your baby, right? And so that's how he explained it. And he goes, now that's something you can imagine, that's something you can envision, and that's something that you can put in your brain to say, holy crap. So in that moment, right, when if chaos, you wouldn't want chaos to disrupt, what would you do? Right? What would you do? How would you plan? How would you make sure that everyone is okay? Everyone's taken care of? How would you make sure that you, if need be the guy to fall on the grenade rather than your kids or God forbid your wife, right? And when he said it, I was like, man, that right there is a perspective that fathers will never be able to remove from their head. Once they read it, you can't take it out of your head now, right? And if you're listening to this, I wholeheartedly believe you cannot take this out of your head now. And so, you know, when he talks about us being in a war, and declaring war, Satan has declared war on the biblical family. And if in today's society you can see it, right? We have abortions, we have a society where LGBTQI, whatever, LGBTQIA, where you know grown men and women are exposing themselves to young children and saying this is acceptable, and we have all these perversions in this world and society telling us, hey, trying to explain to us, no, this is okay, this is acceptable, this is a must. When in reality, no, this is trying to Satan saying, hey, I hear your cry for war, and now I'm going to make sure, sorry, there's smoke everywhere from my fire, it's going out. I'm here to make sure that you lose. Even though God has already declared victory, Satan's saying, I'm here to make sure you lose. You, that father who's a fence rider in their faith, right? that was one. And then the second part was what Satan's strategies, two strategies are, and what he does and how he to get to families. And that is to strategy one is to effectively alienate and sever a husband's relationship with his wife. Such a division can be either physical or emotional. Both are equally effective. Strategy two, to effectively alienate and sever a father's relationship with his children. Again, such a division can be either physical or emotional. Both are equally effective. And these are the tools and the strategies that Satan uses to get to us, right? To our families. And he goes on further to mention divorce and some statistics about divorce, about how every 1 in 2 family ends um all right, was it 1 to 2? I don't know. He mentioned, I don't remember at the top of my head, and I won't search the book right now, but he mentions divorce and how serious that is in that regards. And he asks the questions: what are we doing, especially fathers, or even, but if even to my mothers, if you're listening, what are you doing to ensure your relationship is safe and doesn't become another statistic? I think it's an imperative question that we all need to ask ourselves, even sit down and talk to our wives and whatnot, because as a person in the military, divorce is the divorce rate, while across the military is around 3 to 4%. Um, it's it's very high in the sense that within every unit there's someone getting a divorce, who just went through divorce, um, is about to go through a divorce, or is already divorced. Like this, like it is a serious. I can tell you right now, all those categories I just named, I know someone different, someone who just got a divorce, someone who's going through a divorce, someone who doesn't know but the divorce papers are about to be served, or someone who just got a divorce. But like I know all of those categories. I know people in all those categories. Um, but this goes back to me for how we need to be leaders within our home, and how for me leadership has been such been a thing that I thought I understood and thought I knew, but I knew and understood it from the societal way of thinking, of how the army taught me how to be a leader, and which is not a terrible way, but there's a lot of flaws within that way, right? Because it's that way of being a leader demands and expects that there are people who are going to understand there's a rank structure, and so therefore they're going to follow that rank structure. But if that rank structure dissolves, or is means nothing, or no longer holds the value or the weight that it once did, or it did, um, you're right back to, okay, how do I lead people? How do I control people, right? With and get them to listen. And this goes right back to me. For me, like, my kids are not soldiers, so I can't, even though there's a hierarchy within the home, I can't expect them to follow orders like my soldiers do, or did, if you will. And so, you know, I have done a lot of praying, a lot of thinking lately, and calling on God to just take, let God be the leader, let God be the forefront of my prayers and the forefront of my beliefs, and just really um, ask Him what His will is, because seek, I believe it's Matthew, seek first the kingdom of God. You've all heard me say this so many times, but this prayer, it lives in my head forever, right? It will live in my head forever. And the hierarchy that I think all of us have forgotten within our families as fathers goes God, man, wife, children. And oh, let me rephrase it: God, father, mother, kids, right? And so within that hierarchy, what I forgot was God was at the forefront. God was the top. And so while I'm trying to go off of my own knowledge, I'm forgetting that I need to go off of what God's wisdom. I need to seek God and ask for His wisdom, His insight, and tell me how He wants me to lead my family. You know, I've there's so many great fathers in the Bible. One of them being, gosh, one of them being, um, why can't I, why am I thinking Jonah? Joseph. One of them being Joseph. Oh, man, brain fart. One of them being Joseph, and Joseph was a carpenter. And imagine being Joseph and hearing, God, hey, you're going to raise the Messiah. There's a lot of pressure in that, right? Joseph is only a carpenter. And it's not to say carpenters are stupid. I think actually to be a carpenter, you need to be you need to be very smart. You need to be able to pay attention to detail, because whenever you're making something or wood and doing all those things, there's a lot of things that go into it. So you have to be a fairly intelligent person, or an intelligent person to do that. But I think imagine being Joseph, who's like, okay, well, I'm great at my job, maybe, but I'm not a scholar. I don't have the wisdom of the Pharisees or the Sadducees, right? I don't have that wisdom in the biblical sense that they do, and I'm to raise the Messiah. But what I think is amazing is how God just wanted him to lead lead his family, how he was already leading them. Hey, I'm a carpenter, so I'm going to do what I know what a carpenter does. And he did that. And then we still got Jesus. We still got, and then God did the rest, right? And we still got that amazing Jesus that that the Messiah we were waiting for. Um, I think it's, oh man, I think it's so amazing, and how like, the Bible doesn't go into Jesus's younger years in the sense of day to day of what Mary and Joseph are doing to make sure Jesus was going to be this great Messiah that he was prophesied to be. I think, and I think it does that for a reason. I'm not too certain if this is the reason, but if I had to guess, it's for the purpose of to take away the pressure on us to say, oh, well, this is how Jesus was raised, so now therefore this is how I need to raise my kids, when he has already outlined in his word how we are to bring up our kids. He's already described how we're supposed to bring up our kids. And so I say all that to say, guys, that I think that, praise be to God. Put all your burdens at his feet. Pray continuously, and just remember that as a father, you may be the head of your household, but God is still the leader of you, and you need to follow his will, and his will then come to you, and then you can teach your family. Man, that's all I got, guys. I really love doing this. Again, Merry Christmas. I won't see you all until the following year, 2025, which would be obviously next week. At this point, I didn't even intend to do a video today, but I kind of felt the pull to do one, and so I won't be posting any more videos. Well, I lied. I will be posting a video next week on Monday, but that's not the first. But that's the last video of the year, right? And that video is already pre-recorded, ready to go and put uploaded, and whatever the case might be. But I won't be doing any more videos in the sense of like recording for the rest of the year. So that being said, y'all, hey, thank you for being continuously support